Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of 100 Yards of Football Sports Talk Radio. I'm your host and producer, Logan Landers, and joining me to talk about the NFL draft prospect, Devondre Sweat, defensive tackle, coming out of Texas, the one, the only, Mr. Daniel Kelly. How you doing this afternoon, Daniel?
Hey, I'm doing well, Logan. Thank you so much for asking. Just getting excited here. And looking at that big boy on the screen there, one of my favorite players in the 2024 NFL draft, has me excited.
Well, let's get right into it, man. Give us your thoughts on Devondre Sweat and what you like about the young man coming out of Texas.
Absolutely. There's a lot to like, literally and figuratively, about Devondre Sweat there. 6'4.5", 366 pounds. You can see on your screen there that we can barely even make out his jersey number. He's one of the big guys, and I love that. Oh, yeah. A rotational defensive lineman at Texas, went in and out of the lineup, and I studied him extensively on game film. 2022, I looked at him 6 games. In 2023, I looked at him and studied him against Kansas State, Alabama, Houston, Oklahoma, Kansas, and Wyoming. Game film trumps everything. Game film is king at firstroundmock.com. If they don't do it on game film, it shows up in the grade. And we're the only draft site in America that not only lists the games, but also puts the links in the game so you can click on them and watch the same thing that I've watched or any of my evaluators have watched at firstroundmock.com. Game film is everything. I can't emphasize that enough. This guy takes over games. Speaking of game film, on 2022 game film, I called him a human avalanche. Easily, like I said, one of my favorite players in the 2024 NFL draft. I've loved this big man in all 12 games I've evaluated. I couldn't get enough of watching him play out there. This dude flashes game-wrecking, nasty type of brute power. My type of thing. That's what I like. It's a kind of power that can send a 300-pound offensive lineman flying the way a child would take a stuffed animal and throw him across the room. Sweat is an absolute force of nature, and at times he can look like a man amongst boys out there on the film. Listen, I saw him in a game this last season against Alabama with the Proctor, that big offensive tackle down there, a 6'7", 360-pound tackle at Alabama, and he got into his chest and drove him back into the quarterback like he was on skates. That's saying something right there. One of the most fascinating plays I've seen this year on film. I put it on his report, actually. The big minus on Sweat, there's positives and negatives with these guys. He's not like this on every single snap. I wish he was, and if he was, he would easily be my number one player on the board, but he's not. So I have to subtract for that, but he's still pretty good, and he's definitely a difference maker and will be on a defense in the National Football League. He still tends to, even when he's not, like doing it like the lights green on every play, he still draws a lot of attention and a lot of double teams, which of course frees up other defenders to go in and make plays. Let's put it this way. He's decent most of the time, and he's the best player on the field at other times. And against the run, this dude is like a major appliance, okay? When I say major appliance, we all have like stoves and refrigerators and washers and dryers and that type of thing, right? We've worked with them or whatever the case may be. This guy is like one of those big major appliances. He's got equally distributed, rock solid 366 pounds. What does that mean? He's thick, he's stout, he's almost impossible to move all the way. In the run game, he seriously occupies space, and he's able to come off some of those blocks and, of course, make absolute sledgehammer type of hits on running backs. He dared to try to weave through, the lanes where he's occupying that space. You're really taking your chances if you're a running back. And let's say this: Sweat knows how to put every single ounce of that size you see on your screen. He knows how to put every single ounce of those 366 pounds into hits on running backs. He punishes them. Okay. He gives off some Jalen Carter, who was my number one player on the board last year. He gives off some Jalen Carter vibes at times, that alpha guy, that dominant defensive force on the defense, but he's not getting the love. This guy, to Sweat on your screen, there's not getting the love from the draft community. As of today, I checked it out before we went on air, Mr. Landers, and only 12.3% of NFL draft platforms outside of FirstRoundMock.com have Sweat as a first-round grade. But I will give this guy the love. He has earned it on film with me. Guys like with these kind of traits that transfer and show up on film do not grow on trees. Let me kind of run through the kind of zeroed in on here even more and put Sweater in under the draft microscope, and let's look at unpack the positives and the negatives. First, the positives I've alluded to several times and made reference to the massive power and size he can add to a team's defensive line. This guy is best at the end of halves or the end of games when he empties the gas tank. Versatile. Texas moved him around pre-snap. I mentioned just a moment ago he was matched up against Alabama's left tackle. They move him a tackle, taking on tackles. They move him inside. Primarily, he plays inside an interior defensive line, but they do move him around and match him up a little bit, which speaks to how gifted he really is. He uses his hands exceptionally well at the point of attack. He's got wrecking ball capability. He gets into a quarterback's head. This is a big one right here. He gets into the quarterback's head because his ability to penetrate. Picture this. You're a quarterback dropping back in the pocket, right? And you have this guy coming at you, right? This huge 366-pound guy that's like this big snowball that's just rolling into the pocket towards you. So it gets into your head. It's something that I believe is going to become a kind of a preoccupied thinking of NFL quarterbacks as he begins to get into the gap or just decides to put the center, just push him right back into the quarterback's face. This guy, now this is where it comes in interesting. This is not just another big guy with a pretty face, okay? This is a guy that has exceptional, incredible short area acceleration and closing speed for his size. Once he starts rolling, he can close on the target fast. That's very, very important to get a hold of here. He holds his own, against the run. He battles, he fights. He's a fighter. He's most effective against the run playing inside the box, but he will hunt and chase. He's not just limited. He will hunt and chase at times and outside the box and chase out to the sidelines. The negatives, the only big negative I see with Trevondre Sweat there on our screen is stamina. A guy this size, that's the only thing that it's not effort. That's not the thing with this guy. That's why we don't see him, at this incredible, just looking incredible in every single play. Is I think it's a stamina issue. Is catching his breath. 366 pounds. The guy brings it all the time, but that's the biggest thing. He was a rotational player at Texas, but when he's on, he's easily the best player in the field when he's on. Conclusion, Mr. Landers, before I turn it over to you, this guy is everybody you bring into the team, all the players, all 53 guys in the locker room are pieces to a puzzle, to a bigger picture. This guy, Sweat, is a Super Bowl championship piece to the puzzle for a team that's drafting, a playoff type of team. In terms of where I see him, I have a first round grade on Trevondre Sweat. He's somebody that I think will factor in very nicely to a team. I know at NFL.com, I pay real close attention to where they, their first round board and team needs and that type of thing, because they have an ear to up to the wall listening to what teams are doing. They got good sources and different things. They do list, Chad Reuter put out a mock that had the Dolphins listed with their as defensive tackle being their second biggest need next to the interior offensive lineman. There are no interior offensive linemen I've seen their first round worthy this year in this draft. I do believe I see the Dolphins being a very good fit for Sweat. He's somebody that the Dolphins lost, of course, defensive tackle, the free agency to the Raiders, and so I do see this guy being a Christian Wilkins, departed. I do see Sweat being a guy that the Dolphins could bring in, plug and play on that defensive line. It can make a real difference in Miami's quest to get back to the show. Your thoughts, Mr. Landers, on T'Vondre Sweat? There he is, number 93 on our screen. Can't miss him. What are your thoughts on him?
No, you can't miss this guy. And when he gets drafted, he'll be one of the heaviest players in the league. I believe the offensive lineman for Baltimore, who was drafted a couple of years ago, was just a little bit heavier, Daniel Falele. I think he's got about maybe 10, 15 pounds on the young man you see here. But you mentioned it. He's got the motor and the will to succeed and the will to get to the quarterback. But if they can just get some better conditioning wherever he goes, if they can get him on a program, I'm not saying to lose a lot of weight. I'm just saying to get his cardio up, then you'll see that relentlessness, because that's what it is whenever you see someone get after the quarterback. It's two things for me, and just how much effort they give on the play. It's, do you really want it, and what's your stamina looking like? Mm-hmm. For T'Vondre Sweat, his issue is the stamina. It's the cardio. It's not the, can I get to the quarterback? We saw what he could do at Texas, one of the best programs in the nation. How he can get to the quarterback, how he can blow up plays, how he can just get it done flat out. And a guy who stayed an extra year, right? A super senior this past season, made it count. He won any kind of trophy you can think of. This guy pretty much has it right now in his house. He took home Outland Awards. He's got unanimous All-American awards, first team All-Americans, just a lot of stuff he did this year. And he made opposing offensive linemen work every single play pretty much. Now, like you mentioned, the one issue that could happen if an offensive team goes on a lengthy drive, if they go on 15-play drives, 20-play drives, that's when I worry about him. How can his stamina hold up deep into a game and also deep into certain drives? We'll have to see how that plays out in the National Football League. But I like this guy because, like I said, he's a big guy. He's a bruiser. It's hard to miss him for sure. And he's got those good flashes you see. Obviously, he's got tremendous power. He can get through guys with the best of them. But I just think if they can tweak his conditioning a little bit, DK, watch out for this guy, because he could really be impactful for whoever drafts him here in just a few short weeks. What are your final thoughts, though, on Mr. T'Vondre Sweat?
Well, Mr. Landers, you make a really good point there, and I think that's going to be key to his upside and his ceiling in the National Football League is that conditioning. And I'm not making a knock to the conditioning program at Texas or what he's been through to date. But this is a guy that I think this is not a guy that I see any kind of background with any kind of eating problems or we've seen those guys come through the league before. That's not what I'm seeing or hearing about Sweat. He's a guy that actually wears the 366 pretty nicely. But if you could just dial it down a little bit, the thing that goes through my mind with my background experience is if you could get this guy to 340, let's say, I mean, just that extra 26 pounds and he's not going to lose any power, because think about the power this guy has. Okay. When I mentioned Proctor's not some kind of average Joe, in Alabama. This is starting left tackle on the Crimson Tide. Okay. 6'7", 360 pounds. Okay. So he put him on skates. He drove him back like you would see like a big brother do against a little brother in a backyard game of football. Just absolutely just demolish him and just throw him right back. So he's got the kind of upper body power that can actually he can move around his own weight, right? because Sweat is 366, Proctor's 360. So he can, Sweat is strong enough where he can move his own body weight around when he's facing an opponent. So if you dialed him down somehow and got him on a program where he gets down to about 340 and just gets a little bit better stamina, this is going to be, all of a sudden you take him at 21 and 2-3 years down the road at 340, this guy's looking like he should have been a top 10 pick. The only reason why I have him going number 21 to 32, somewhere in that range, is because of the stamina issue. If he gets that under control, like you talked about, gets a little bit better stamina, because this isn't, like I said, this is not an effort guy. This is not, he takes some plays off and everything. If this guy had his way, his will, is what he wants. His want is 100%. He just has to get his stamina up to match his want. And even at the 366, even if he doesn't lose a pound, this guy is going to get inside people's heads, and he's going to be a real force to be reckoned with. And that's what it's all about. It's about pushing the pocket, disrupting the pocket, blowing up the pocket, getting to the quarterback in today's NFL. And that's why Sweat is such a value going into the 2024 NFL draft.
Yes, sir, Mr. Kelly. I appreciate it as always. And Devondre Sweat coming to a defensive line near you very, very soon. Guys, if you enjoyed the episode, give us a like, follow, share, and subscribe on our social media channels, Facebook and YouTube. Also, go check out our podcast every single week. You can go and listen to that for our NFL draft scout, former draft scout Daniel Kelly over at firstroundmock.com. I've been your host and producer, Logan Landers. Guys, go get your draft notes ready. Make sure you got snacks on deck in just a few short weeks because the NFL draft is coming very, very soon. We'll see you later.